Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Debra Eckerling, creator of the Deb Method for Goal Setting Simplified. I am also the author of Your Goal Guide and 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting. You can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people. So every week I bring together some of my people to dive into the special topic. And today we're talking about performance/performing. And really, in this day and age, whatever you do, are you not on stage, on camera? Well, maybe not on camera, but at all times. So I'm really excited to have today's guest with me, KaZ Akers, LaPage, and Eli Schiff. And they all represent different elements of the performosphere. And they're all multi-hyphenates. Wait, what was the word you?
Multi-potentialites.
And
Wow.
Yeah, so we're all kind of.
I wish it was
feeling that.
mine. I borrowed it. I have to look up the name of the woman who coined that phrase, but I'm using it. I'm using the heck out of it.
So we're going to have fun. You may be watching this as GoalChat live. You might be watching the replay or listening to us as the GoalChat podcast on the Marketing Podcast Network. But no matter how you found us, we are so glad you're here and looking to amp up your performing and your performance goals. So friends, before we jump in, I would love for you all to introduce yourselves. Well, let's say introduce yourselves better, because basically all I said was you guys are awesome. Which is, again, also true. So KaZ, who comes to me through our friend Kristen Cofield, who was on a few weeks ago. Welcome.
Yes,
and who the heck are you?
You do not have enough time for me to start from the beginning when I started performing professionally at age 14, performing and writing actually professionally at age 14. But I have, I've been in all aspects of the entertainment industry, on stage, on film, camera, and as a producer. I had my own television production company in Canada. Singer, I'm a hyphenate. I'm multi-layered, / singer, dancer, actor, choreographer, director, TV producer, theater, creative director, author, stunt person. I was a stunt person, circus artist, a professional water skier. When the door opened, I walked through it. So I've done a ton, and now I'm still doing some of it. I'm definitely not falling off of buildings anymore. That's for sure. But I'm still active.
Someone might call that smart.
It's really smart because although I am young at heart, I am now considered a mentor or elder. And I said I started at 14 and that was years ago, but yeah, I'm still acting. I took a break from acting and singing. I've been a singer and done off-Broadway and tours, and I have several CDs that were recorded, and still doing that to an extent if the project moves me. But as an actor, I took a break a while ago and thought, you know what? I'm in a new category now. It was probably 9 or 10 years ago. I'm in a new category now, and I'm ready to hit the boards again. So, but I've gotten so busy with we talked about multi-potentialites, the / hyphenates, multi-layered, multi-dimensional people, and I'm still every bit of that. And but I love I'm mentoring. I don't say coaching. I'm not big on that word coaching. I mean, if you coach, more power to you. But I love working with younger people who are kind of stuck maybe in the middle of their career, or they've gotten older and left, or trying to stay in the business. And that gives me the ultimate thrill these days because I did so much of the producing and the directing. And Ellie was saying about doing voiceovers. In the TV series that I produced, I also did the direction for the voiceovers, and I love that. I love doing voiceovers too.
But, awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll talk even more about that, but let's meet our other people. Well, I know them, but now you get to know them too. Leslie, welcome. And Leslie, I met, she interviewed me and we had so much fun. It was like, come on, be on my show. So Thrilled to have you here.
super happy to be here. I stem from acting originally, studied with Milton Gonzalez and Lee Strasberg and Stella Adler, and then went behind the camera as a producer, director, worked for major studios, independents, created and shot in pretty much every country on the planet, although not Alaska and not Egypt yet. So I'm, still trying to get there.
Goals, right?
Yeah, exactly. Goals. I also run the Femme International Film Festival, which is worldwide branded, going into its 21st year. And I teach film at LMU as well. You have to be a multi-hyphenate, multi-potentialist, especially as a woman in the entertainment industry. You can't just do one thing, and you've got to do it better than the men. No offense to the men out there, but we have to do it better because we're up against tough competition.
And backwards and in high heels, right?
And looking good and smiling all at the same time.
Awesome. And when I do the recap, which you can get at thedebmethod.com/blog, I will also put the link to when you interviewed me because we had so much fun.
Uber fun.
Uber fun. Let's, very high bar. I'm certain we will have as much fun today. Only time will tell. Eli Schiff, great to see you.
It's so nice to see you again. It's been a little while.
It has. Now, I interviewed Eli like 3 years ago when I started writing for the Jewish Journal again. And since then, his wife, Sherry Pear, has been on the show several times. It's your turn. You're welcome. Great to have you.
It is wonderful to be here. After hearing those introductions, I feel like a bit of a slacker. I don't know. I've kind of mostly stayed in my lane. I've done a bunch of other things. I've done improv. I've done sketch comedy. But for the most part, once I started having kids, it was just too much to do all the theater stuff. And we're just like, let's kind of focus a little bit more. So now I focus mostly on voiceover, mostly acting. I also do casting and writing and producing. My wife and I just put together a series of shorts. One just actually premiered at the New York Film Festival, Big Apple Film Festival.
Right.
And it's about basically, they all had different topics, but we had a miscarriage between two of our children. And so Sherry, my wife, is an illustrator, cartoonist. So she wrote a comic. She drew a comic about it, which I helped edit. And then ultimately she got a grant last year, was able to turn that and several other comics into short films that I was able to help cast and voice direct, which, KaZ was talking about a little earlier. It is really something pretty amazing, especially to see it come to life afterwards. It's just really, really phenomenal.
And you've got a day job, but you do acting and voice acting
Yeah.
and all of the things, right?
There was a little strike you might have heard of a couple of years ago. And during that point, I ended up getting a full-time job. So I have a degree in accounting, so I went back into doing that full-time. But I work in an office 3 days a week and home 2 days a week. So there is some flexibility there.
I apologize. I certainly did not mean to out your day job, but it really just goes to show, and this is something that I talk about a lot, especially in terms of goals or the land of goals or whatever it is, sometimes you need the job. But you also need to be doing the things that light you up, that bring you joy, that bring you the good energy, because that balances out. And I have to know, accounting, you kind of like it, right? Or is it like a slog for you?
It's funny because I went to school for accounting while doing theater at the same time. So to me, it kind of balanced for me. Like, I have that math brain where I love puzzles. And so for me, it really does fit my personality in a different sense. And then I get to come home and be all these wacky characters and whatever else. So you get to kind of use both sides of the brain during the day. So, and it's nice, it's nice to have something steady, but also have something where I have that creative side, and the people at work know that I do this. It's not like a secret. So when I just actually booked a big campaign for Hellman's, which is really cool. And they just started airing, and I shared that with my coworkers, and one of them just texted me, "Hey, I heard it on Peacock," and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." So it's not like I'm hiding something; it's just kind of all part of my life.
Well, there was a time, and I would say like 10, 15 years ago, when you went and tell me if you all agree with me, you would go to a networking event and it didn't matter how many things that you did. You had to be one person
Yeah.
the entire time. Now, if you're not more than one person, people look at you kind of sideways. And I had a similar story. I worked in financial services for many years. So I, like you, I've got the creative brain, but I do communications and project management. And I didn't let them know I was a freelance writer. And one day, one of my marketers said, "Hey, Deb, I was at this restaurant in Venice and I picked up Venice Magazine. Did you know that there is a writer named Debra Eckerling who freelances for this publication?" And I said, "It's me." And it took about 10 minutes for me to convince him that it was indeed me. I think that was the last job that I didn't tell people about all of my potential lightedness. Leslie, how many people are you?
Oh my God. Including the wife and the parent to 2 puppies and a parent to a 17-year-old actor and my husband. I don't know. The list goes on. I think 15 I'm capping out at. Multitasking is kind of an interesting thing. I think in still some areas you have to be myopic and you have to, decrease your purview and just tell them the one thing you can do, depending on kind of what the landscape is, because they may not be able to grasp that you can do more than one. It has changed over the last 6 years from COVID, when people have really outed themselves on multitasking, and especially since the strikes. I've always found it as an asset, because my multitasking has allowed me to do things, no other people can do, right? I bring an acting perspective, I bring a directing perspective, a writing perspective. I run a film festival, so I'm an expert in female content creators worldwide. I see 4,000 pieces of content a year. I teach filmmaking and producing and creative producing. And the list just goes on and on. So it's the wave of the future. I do not think that the A's, Generation A's, and the Z's really can just do one thing anymore. Even my son, who's an actor, I'm like, you have to be an entrepreneur. How do you get your acting done? You're going to start writing. You're going to start writing and producing. I'm going to teach you how to produce, so that, when I leave this planet, you know how to produce and get your content done. I think that's the generation that we're really talking to.
I completely agree. And so my community, Write On Online, started as a writer support group, but I say writers, creatives, and entrepreneurs, because if you're one, you are the other two as well. And having that umbrella, and mine is goal strategist, and somehow I managed to put everything all of the 10 me's that I do under that umbrella, including book proposal strategist, including workshop leader, and food podcaster. So you kind of have to choose your umbrella, and then what are you going to do? Which raindrops are, wait, that could have been a really good metaphor, but I think I lost it. Yeah, you explained earlier that you're like a dozen, right?
Oh yeah, easy. And you always have to be selling, right? From Glengarry Glen Ross, always be selling. So you're always selling, because you're always looking for your next gig, whatever that next gig might be. So you're always selling.
Mm-hmm. And so we've got Chris Stone, who loves, is it multi-potentialist or multi-potential light, KaZ?
Multi-potential light. And I remembered who coined that phrase. We were talking about it right before we started recording. Her name is Emily Wapnick.
Wow.
And she has a website called Putty Like. And a multi-potentialist, we are ists, but multi-potential light, being the totality of it. But either's great.
I still bump into people that don't and can't comprehend you do more than one thing. There is that generation that's still out there that has that locked down point of view. But the assets that you gain by being a multi-potential light is just better than any film school, better than any college out there.
Yeah, the more you do, the more you bring to a project.
Yeah.
And the more aspects of your life, which is why it's like, some actors just sit and study in text or whatever, do their, study the texts and whatever,
mhm.
but going out and experiencing life, that you could bring more to it that way.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
My son's an actor, and we are, creating his voiceover reel. I'm like, dude, you gotta know how to be an actor in all genres, in all
Let me know
forms
if he
of
wants any
acting.
help. I'm happy to help with that
Well, I will. I'll tap into it.
for sure.
But
Yeah.
the crazy
And
thing
what's
about
interesting? Oh, sorry. Okay.
no,
I mean, it's different techniques. You
Well,
have your performance technique,
I-
which is different than
what's interesting about
your voice. So
voiceover,
talk about that.
100%. But what's interesting about voiceover is some people are even specialists within voiceover to
Yeah,
certain genres. There's some people
right,
who only
yeah,
do audiobooks or promos or
right,
this or that, whatever. I mean, I've been lucky to work in a bunch of different areas.
animation.
right.
Yeah, animation. Some people,
Mhm.
I mean, you don't really work
Character work.
exclusively. If you can do character work in animation, that's great. But usually, you'll also be able to do commercials.
Yeah.
But there are some people whose voices are so unique that they
Mhm.
can only work in certain
Right,
genres.
right.
But a
Mhm.
good enough actor is the key. I mean, being a good actor is the key. If you're a good enough actor, you can stretch and do some other things, even if you have a unique voice.
Yeah,
You can find somewhere.
exactly. In a different life, when I was in New York, I was doing voiceovers, and I had to, understand the different paths, right? Character work, book work. Really, what audio book work wasn't really done, but it was character and commercials, long form commercials, etc.
Yeah.
So, KaZ, you wanted to jump in.
Oh,
I was
sorry about
going to
that.
say, oh, no, that's absolutely fine. What I was going to say is I left social media for quite a long time, for 7 years. As a matter of fact, I came back and it looked totally different. And what in the last year and a half that I've been back on, the thing that I've noticed the most, and that teachers and experts have kind of coached me on, was to niche. You must niche if you're going to be gain any footage or get any traction. You need to niche. And I tried so hard to niche, and I'm definitely the round peg trying to be put in a square hole.
Mhm.
And it's been impossible. And then I said, what's wrong with me? Because I'm involved in a couple other groups, and great people, and they text me, and they have found their niche that has helped them to become whatever influencers or get more exposure. And I try something for a while that is definitely a part of me and what I do.
Mhm.
And then I said, well, this other thing that you do, like I'm a 6-time certified master meditation teacher. I've been teaching for 24 years and studying and practicing for 34. So you're such a good meditation teacher. Well, I mean, I've been presenting for years and speaking on stage and performing. It's not really a performance, because you have to help relieve people and help them release. But anyway, I digress. I do that. So they said, well, why don't you go after that? Or why don't you go after the fact that you're a published poet, or go after the fact that you wrote television, but always just one box.
I don't know. I feel
And
like
I
you can use all those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, you
Yes.
All those
gotta
things
be a
relate to who you are.
you gotta be
Exactly.
a multi-nicher.
Maybe. But I
Well,
also think that
yeah.
it's what you're focusing on. Are you focusing on like acting or you're focusing on writing or whatever it is? All of that leads into
I'm doing
creativity,
all of it.
Yeah.
And
right? So I
I
mean,
still have avenues to do all of it. But I mean, no disrespect to nichers. I mean, if you can niche, that is amazing.
Niche away.
I have way too many tabs open to make that a reality for my life. I'm a prism. I'm a kaleidoscope. I'm a tapestry. They said pick a lane, and I said, well, I'm going to have to make a roundabout. It's just. But now I've had that. Deborah, where I got that impetus is after the first time I did one of your goal setting meetings. And I came in as I'm coming back to acting. And then I felt so kind of, this is not where I belong. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. But by the end, I'm like, oh, I love this group. I'm coming back next month. And I had that month, and I came, and that's where I gave you the multi-potentialite. And I said, that's me. I can't deny it. I'm just being inauthentic. I'm not being genuine. And anybody that says, pick a lane, I'm going to say, I have to have a highway, Too bad.
And
Well, let's talk about authentic performances and authentic writing. That seems to be the word that's been thrown around for the last 6 years. Is they want authentic stories. They want, genuine, authentic, right? As if somehow we were writing non-authentic stories 10, 15 years ago. I think the authentic performances doesn't matter really what and who you're playing. It's how you're digging in to the role and how invested you are in the role to create the character that then stands out. I think in whatever you choose, whatever niche you're going into, or multi niches, if performance is part of that, then you have to really understand and fine tune and hone your skill at performance, because that's how you're going to stand out. That's how you're going to stand out in a film festival. That's how you're going to stand out when you're doing live theater. That's how you're going to get cast. That's how your voice is going to stand out when you're doing voiceovers, is this component.
Okay, but before we go down that rabbit hole, I'm all about
I'm
the
sorry,
rabbit
I
hole.
didn't mean to go down a rabbit hole. I'll hop back out.
No, wait. I want to
No.
get to that rabbit hole, but before we get there, I think we need to answer the question: why is presentation and performance so important in whatever you're doing? I mean, I've got a bunch of entertainment professionals here, and one might argue, since I'm a podcaster, I'm everything adjacent. But for consultants, for entrepreneurs, for business people, for thought leaders, they still need that. So what is that difference in knowing presentation to help you stand out? And yes, Leslie, you can go first.
I don't know. Do you want to be boring, or do you want to be engaging? I mean, really, make the choice. Boring and engaging. Engaging makes more money. Boring doesn't.
Okay, so performance
Sometimes
is
people don't
important.
know the difference, though. Some people who have get up to do a presentation, they haven't been given the tools to elevate their presentation and bring along their personality.
That's true. But that's why lawyers who have no skill at performance hire performance enhancers to enhance and get those yeses on whatever they're trying to get yeses from their jury. They're learning how to perform. So again, it goes back to boring or not boring.
But you're always doing that in general. You're always trying to maybe convince someone of an opinion, or, just in life, that's what we do. So if you're going to be doing that, you want to give your authentic, we keep using that word, but your authentic thoughts and your authentic reasoning for it. You don't want to just come say, oh, I think this is a good movie because someone else says it's a good movie. You have to have your understanding of why and what it means to you in order to kind of convince people of that. In which case, if you're getting up to do a presentation, whether you're a lawyer or whether you're an
accountant.
Yeah, well, I guess, I there are times where I have to convince people what I have to say is better than the other option. Or maybe that, this is a new way of thinking about things. And by using my real opinions as opposed to just kind of like, oh, well, this is what that person says, and I don't know. It really is more engaging. It's more interesting. And like Leslie was saying earlier, it's about really trying to get people engaged, right?
Yeah, but is it what you're saying or how you're saying?
It's
I think it's how you're
combination.
saying.
But you're going to change the way you say something based on what you think about it, right? If I'm talking to you versus I'm talking to my child, I'm not going to say things the same way, right?
But are you going to edit yourself? Because that you're gonna. I think you edit yourself for the audience that's listening to you. So you may not.
I don't think of it as
give them all that
editing. It's just
information.
how you authentically speak to them, right? I mean, you're not going to talk to a 25-year-old the same way that you're going to speak to a 10-year-old, the same way you're going to speak to a 65-year-old. You're just not going to. I don't know if that's editing or it's just the way we naturally interact.
Okay, so
I don't know. I talk to everybody the same.
So your answer is basically performance is important because you change the way you say things based on the people you are saying them to.
The audience. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the biggest parts of voiceover specifically. Know who you're talking to. because we're not presented with another actor often. We're not presented with an environment in which to say it. So where are you doing this? What are you saying? Who are you saying it to? What are your opinions about what you're saying? You know, you could have a one line or you could have an entire speech, but you're still maybe the only person in the booth. You have to know who it is that you're presenting this to. You know, sometimes it's for a corporate narration job, and even then you still want to know who the people are you're talking to. But if you're talking, you know, you're supposed to be having a conversation and they only give you half the lines because you don't know what the other half they're saying. You have to make a conversation up in your head about who it is you're talking to, what it is you're saying. Oftentimes with auditions, that's how it is. You don't get the full script the way that you do maybe in, you know, on camera.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think, KaZ? Why is performance important no matter what it is that you're doing?
Well, it's interesting. I started out in musical comedy, and comedy is absolutely my favorite thing to do. People say, oh, you know, it's harder than drama. I found that to be absolutely the opposite for me. I have done dramas and I just have to eat my guts out to just bring it up and dredge it up. But I was listening to a stand-up today, and he said, you know, I'm doing corporate gigs, I'm doing comedy store, I'm doing, you know, maybe theaters. But he brought the same person to every circumstance, but he had to edit or had to take out material or put in material. If it was a corporate gig, you know, the swear words weren't flying around. If he was in the comedy store, let her rip. You know, and I piggybacking off what Leslie said, I think they're still being that person. It's just they are having to, you know, read
know
the
the read the room, know the audience, know
Adjust
the audience.
accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I edited your answer because apparently I need to. No, with you, it comes down to authenticity. You bring who you are or a version of who you are wherever you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you know who you are. And I've
well, that's a different GoalChat.
That's a different topic, right? That's a different podcast. Yeah, I mean, bring the version of you that you think that you are, and just be there, be with. I know authenticity. It's really such an overused word these days. Being genuine, being authentic. I mean, I guess I have to go on ChatGPT and find more words, but yeah, bring it.
That's what I was kind of playing with, is the authentic really is just kind of, I think, a buzzword. You know, I think what really speaks more is being present in the moment, and your own voice will come through. And that in itself is unique and authentic, right? So it doesn't really matter if a script is, you know, a YA script that's written by a 40-year-old white guy. If his voice is authentic, you know, why not? As long as it's present and authentic. You know, I think that's what really makes, you know, amazing performances stand out. Look at Marlon Brando on The Waterfront. Look at, you know, Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. Look at Leonardo DiCaprio in Who's Eating Gilbert Grape, a classic. You know, I mean, these are guys that were in the moment, present. I mean, and I can go through Natalie Portman and Black Swan, and I can do Meryl Streep and Sophie's Choice. I mean, the gamut is wide. That's why these actors are A-list brilliant actors, because they're present and in the moment, creating these realistic characters.
So you answered my next question before I asked it, which is
goody,
fine.
goody.
It happens a lot. But so how do you make your performance stand out? Whether it is you're pitching a client or you're presenting to a group or you're networking at an event. I mean, every interaction, can we agree, is a performance. So what do you do to be memorable? And we know you want to be present in that moment, but yes, and what else?
Don't try too hard. I've been in too many events and been to too many schmoozes, and you can tell the ones who are just trying so hard to be what either you want them, they think you want them to be, or they have turned that networking or that interaction into a performance, and they're not bringing the true, right now, just the three of you, you're bringing such great personality, and it's so real. I'm already feeling very engaged, but very relaxed with you, because I don't feel there's a bunch of subterfuge going on here. And that's
Yeah.
the thing, when you are dealing with someone in a circumstance like this, I can tell, right? I mean, I'm very intuitive, and I can tell almost right off the bat that I'm like, no, nope. And I've seen people come into my audition room who I've met previously, who have sold themselves and sold themselves and sold themselves to me prior to the audition, and they come in and they've got nothing. They sold themselves too much, and the people who just came in and they were just very as relaxed as they could be and knew the material well and weren't trying to give me what they thought I wanted. That was the most successful audition or the most successful meeting. You just never know. I mean, for me, when I was in that casting realm, production realm, sometimes I didn't know exactly the right person. People like I had a story about, I think it was Sigourney Weaver, that she went in to talk to an agent for the first time, and she came in dressed in maybe coveralls, and she was talking to the agent. She put her arm around the agent's shoulder and was showing the agent her book. She had no clue that no one did that, and that everyone was really, she just was 100% herself, and she got signed. And I'm finding more and more people who are able to tap into that seem to be more, and I'm seeing more and more actors. This is their first film. This is the first time they've ever acted. What was that young man in that British series that,
Oh, Adolescent?
oh my
That was
gosh. And it was the first
ridiculous.
time he had
That you
ever
got it
acted.
from 3 words. I feel like it's
I'm great at
password.
charades.
Yeah. I was gonna go down and say Sing Street, but then she said TV show, so I was like, oh well, it's not that.
And yeah, and that just blew me away. He
But
has it in him. He
yeah,
has it somewhere in him to do that. But they did so much improv. They did some improv, and there was one point where he just yawned in the middle of the scene, and as a person, not as his character, and they kept it because he was being interviewed by
I think they
this.
commented it on it also. Like the person's like, "Oh, you're getting tired. Maybe you'll tell us something."
Yeah,
Like
you're
it was
right.
so brilliant the way that show
Yes.
was put together.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
crazy. I want to add to what you were saying though earlier. I think it's less about, we talked about authenticity, but I think all that really comes down to is stripping away performance. I think we all think of performance and you have to be big and blah, and maybe sometimes you do for a character, but that has to still come from a real place because they're real people. I mean, even if you're playing a teaspoon or something, and maybe on lift forever, but it's still based on some little kid. Maybe you know a little kid who's like that, and it shouldn't just be putting things on top of, to make it happen. It should be, okay, well, where's this, no understanding what the basis of the character is, understanding, what they want, why they want it, who they're friends with, who they're enemies with, whatever it is in the scene that you're trying to get across. And I think that's why when it comes to a conversation or a meetup, you're not really putting on a performance. You're just being you.
The role of you is being
And you
played
know
by
what you
you.
want, and you
Right.
know what you want to talk to the other people about, You're not thinking about, how do I get them to agree to my big moment or whatever it is. You're like,
My evil plan.
yeah, exactly. Well,
But
Okay.
during performances, I mean, during, let's say, auditions, right? There's tools that
Oh, for
we
sure.
can that are workable tools, which I always say, find 3 moments that you can do the opposite, but still ground you within the script that is not what the script demonstrates, right? Just completely crazy, off the chart things. So this
I had
can
a
work for
coach that did that
commercials.
once.
Yeah, this can work for commercials. This can work for theater, for film, whatever. I mean, here's an example. I had. I'm just going to be using my son today because I don't know why. I keep using him as an example. But he went in for this audition, and I said, take off a shoe and only come in with one shoe, and tell the casting director as you're doing your introductions that the bear took the shoe. This is for a commercial. And he did this, and the director was in the room, and he goes, wait a second, you can't be in here without a shoe. And he goes, but the bear took the shoe. So I figured I'd just come in without the shoe. And the guy got it, and then they riffed and did this improv off of him and the shoe and the bear that doesn't exist, and ended up booking this because he was just went off this bizarre, random thing, but he was real and present
And
in
took a
that
chance.
and took a chance by doing this, counter to what was expected. And I think even in the workplace of business, and you're presenting PowerPoints, I also do random things. Like I'll break, like, am I boring you guys? Are you guys with me? Can we just take like can we just all have a big hug? And they're like, wait, what? And it snaps them back into the present by doing this random thing. And really, isn't that all what being natural and who you are, isn't that all part of the game of performance?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question, which is going to be a tangent. So I know you all will love this, but didn't it used to, before we were all actors because we were all online every single day, multiple times a day, what was the thing about how there's certain actors who don't know who they are, they just know their roles?
What do you mean?
Are you talking about actors
like
that would just play the same type of character in film or TV series after, or do you mean
or I'm talking
something
about
they've manufactured?
what about characters who are only their people? How do they know who they are? I asked this question in a really bad way. Let me try again.
You mean like Hasselhoff on Baywatch? Sorry. I adore him, but I just had to throw the joke in. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You'll give me a minute to vamp. Okay, I'm gonna ask. I think I have a better question. So let's just erase the last 30 seconds. When you are being as authentically you as you are, what do you do if you do not know who that authentic you-ness is?
Assume the position.
What are some exercises people can? Because
You mean like getting to know yourself a little bit better?
Yes. Thank you for helping me with the question. Because I think we're all either really good examples, because I believe the four of us, we're very authentic. The role of Deb is always played by Deb because there is only one Deb, as with KaZ and Ellie and Leslie. What about the people who are still exploring and they're good at putting on the roles of other people, but they're not quite sure of who they are? How do they get to who they are?
God, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, you
assume the position and fake it till you make it.
You've got a mask and a mask.
Like if you don't know who you are, try it all on.
Yeah, experiment. I think the best thing is to go out and do different things. If you don't think you're funny, get up and do some stand-up or improv just for fun, just to see what happens. And you know what? If you fail, who cares? No one's gonna. It's not like they're gonna hang that over your head for the rest of your life. I mean,
they might.
And if they do, okay, whatever. But like just find different things. Try painting. Be creative in whatever that means to you. I think. And then ultimately you're going to find your voice. Okay, when I started doing voiceover, I used to imitate whatever I'd hear on the radio. Exactly. Like I would just copy it. But they already had that person doing that job. They didn't need me for that. So ultimately I had to kind of find, okay, well, where does my voice suit any of these things? Maybe I don't fit this genre or quite. For example, I'm not going to be doing those, big horror movies, that my voice doesn't sound like that. If they gave it to me in a world, it would just sound so fake. I just don't have that voice. But there are people who do. But
You're
no,
more Nickelodeon.
yeah, I would get like, yeah, coming up next. Yeah, for sure. That's totally more my speed. I mean,
Mhm.
aside from the fact that, it was what I used to watch all the time. I'm not the horror movie buff. I just never had that authentic voice. But I have friends. You
Mm.
see, my voice is still cracking. Um, I have friends though who have these deep, booming voices who can talk like that all the time and pull off whatever. And like, yeah, maybe there are people who do have those kind of voices. Or there are people who have those high-pitched voices and speak really and they do a lot of cartoon and dubbing and that sort of thing. Um, just because you do fit in whatever it is that works for you. You gotta find where you fit in. It's not that you can't do these things, but you won't know it until you try it.
It's discovery. It's totally
Mhm.
discovery. I'm not a dumb blonde, but I played one a lot and it made me really good money.
I was
You
gonna say
know,
it
I
makes
mean,
good money though.
so yeah, it was trial and error and just discovery.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we've got, and so it really goes back, discovery, trial and error. It goes back to that authenticity question that we were tangенting on earlier. Authenticity is one of those words that's a buzzword, but it's unfortunate because it's still an important word. You still need to be authentic or genuine or whatever. So how do we reclaim that word, authenticity?
Believing in whatever it is that you are talking about. I mean, your belief system is 90% of authenticity. If you don't believe it, how can we believe it? Just like when I go in and pitch, a pitch deck, a concept, a story. If I don't believe in the story, these guys are not going to buy it. As in guys, human beings, not necessarily women. Guys or women or whatever. But we get what I'm saying. So you got to believe it. You have to believe and appreciate what it is you're pitching, you're saying, you're performing, you're talking about.
Okay.
I think
You have
finding
to be
your connection.
invested. You totally
Yeah.
have to be invested.
Yeah. Finding your connection to whatever it is that's different. I mean,
Mhm.
we talked about it. I mean, even with the bear, right? She talked about earlier, Leslie, about the bear. I mean, if he came in and didn't believe, really, yes, logically he knows there wasn't a bear, but if he
Correct.
didn't fully buy into that concept and say, "Oh my God, guys, this bear just got my," I had no, and then they played along with it. Also, they bought into it
Right.
because they were willing to go on that journey because he bought into it.
Right, exactly. The director did. The casting director was a little
Yeah.
clueless, but the
Yeah.
director totally got what he was doing. He was like, I thought I lost him. The casting
You're not going to win
director
all
was
those
like,
battles all the time.
what the hell, and the director was like, totally got what the kid was doing. So yeah, because he believed it, because he was like, and he didn't overplay it, and it wasn't over dramatized. It was just like he took my shoe. Like, well, I don't know what to tell you. The bear took my shoe.
Yeah.
And he wasn't churning out what the previous 25 to 35 people
That's a
had
big deal.
done.
Did.
I mean,
Mhm.
that's huge, because that's speaking from a casting director's point of view, as knowing casting directors, and I've been one, is that, you see the people doing the same things with the same information and the same sides and the same over and over and over again. And you just hope for someone who's going to go in a slightly different direction. I mean, you don't want somebody coming in, setting their pants on fire, theoretically, but you're taking
slightly
their
different.
pants
Yeah.
off,
Yeah.
but you want to see something a little more unique or different or interesting,
Mhm.
because, we can get locked into portraying exactly what is said on the page instead of, letting our minds wander.
Actually, you
Yeah,
talked about improv earlier, and that's something that with all acting, but with voiceover in particular, they say that while you shouldn't just change the entire script, adding like a couple of stutters or breaths or laughter or whatever it is, even though it's not specifically written in there, if it fits to the scene and to the character and whatever, it'll make you stand out a little bit more because it's more realistic. When you're talking, you have to pause and think. You have to take a breath. You have to whatever.
Mhm.
These things happen, but
Mhm.
sometimes we try to be so word perfect and so just line by line by line
Mhm.
without reading in between the lines you know, and there are some times where people won't even look between the lines. They'll say, oh, my line, my line, my line. They won't even see it's a conversation. That's the whole point of acting, is that collaborative back and forth, you know?
Yeah, I like buttons at the end. You know,
Yeah.
like what kind of button can you leave it with that isn't on the script that you can interject, especially in commercial work or voiceover work, leaving them with a button that is unusual.
I love that.
You know, or starting with a button to grab their attention. You can also do that. Like starting scenes that are going to be dramatic, just hysterically laughing before you say the first line. All of a sudden they're invested, like, what the heck is this actor doing? You know, and then you have to like catch your breath and say the first line before you turn it into a more dramatic scene. It spins people into a new point of view. And I think that's also an issue overall, just in the casting profession. And I think that's why a lot of casting directors will choose the same actors from the same agencies over and over and over again, because they just don't trust putting their, you know, career on the line for a newbie, which that's a whole different podcast on industry, you know, things that should be corrected.
No, you're 100% right. Or yes, you're 100% right. Yes, you're. Yeah, that's a really, really excellent point, because they know people that they've worked with before who would be right for a particular role. They can depend on them. They come in on time. They do solid work. You know, they know. And then you may not be a newbie, but you might be a newbie to that casting director. They've never worked with you before, so they're less willing to take a chance on many projects than some they can, but others, no, I've got to have it solid, because I've got all these people up the chain who I've got to answer to.
That's why if there's any directors listening, stop letting the casting director do all your work, man. Start putting your butt there, and you start doing the work. You start choosing.
Is it the same on camera? Don't let the casting
directors choose for you.
Is it the same on camera? Because off camera, voiceover specifically, there are a lot of like workshops that people go to in order to get in front of casting directors or agents or whatever else.
Yes,
does that work the same way? It's the same way on camera?
Yeah, it's still been doing that. It's been hot since the 80s when they started this whole thing. But, you know, but now I don't think it's really as the height was in the 80s. I don't know if they're really discovering, you know, new talent and actually choosing them during these workshops. You know, as much as I think they were looking for the hot new kid. I don't think the point of view of casting anymore is looking for the hot new person, the hot new whatever.
Right.
You know, I think it's like, if it falls in their lap, great. But the hot new whatever is someone that won Tribeca, that had never acted in anything, and that's the hot new whatever. So it's not really hot or new.
Sorry, or they're an influencer who's got 2 million followers. Who's great on camera and can walk and chew gum. That's the hot new person.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Wow, that's so depressing.
Isn't it though?
Tell me about it.
It is depressing. It is depressing. I mean, there's, you know, we could do a whole podcast on how the industry needs to change and recreate itself, but I don't think we're there yet.
I love that. Recreate itself. Yes. Not, you don't have to go back, but I mean,
it's recreating.
Art.
Yeah.
Where the hell is art?
Well, we're it's a different world than we were back then.
The Marvel universe.
So
we're in the multi-universe of Marvel. That's the art now.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Marvel, but I feel like you know, we need those movies too. But I do think that there's definitely room for those smaller films, you know, that's kind of gone by the wayside. As a kid, I remember, you know, you had all those fun comedies, like light comedies, and now it's all, you know, Moana Part 2s or you know, whatever, Minecraft or Mario Brothers, like everything that's been done is kind of just being retread.
Right. Everything is part of an established franchise, or it's a sequel, or it's a reboot, right?
Or based off of a novel.
Well, exactly. And that's fine. But especially where technology, you can create art from your home, from your phone, for your whatever, which I think is probably how some of those influencers get into the mix. But, I think the whole part of performance and standing out is, you want to hook, you want to be memorable, and you want to be as humanly possible, because that's going to work to your advantage.
Yeah, I will say with voiceover, it's a little more unique because you can do 2 or 3 different takes oftentimes and show that you can do different things. I know one of the things that I booked was because I showed them that I could do like 3 different takes on it, and they were authentic ideas I had that like fit the characters and whatever. But it was just like, oh, I could do it this way, but I like this also, and I like that also. And I was just trying to figure out which one worked. And they're like, oh, well, we see that you can do different things. We want to work with someone who's got that flexibility. Not always the case, but in that specific situation, and it was also like not 16 pages long, which often on camera they have you memorize. Like, here I read it off a tablet, and a little different.
Well, you should talk to them about the different techniques, because there's different techniques for on camera as opposed to voiceover.
Sure.
Where where you really are obligated more to kind of push the performance more in voiceover, because that's how it stands out on the mic.
It really depends on the genre.
On the genre, yeah.
Yeah, because like with commercials, they really want you to be so very basic. Like they don't want big or anything like that. And then even animation, certain styles nowadays, the more modern animations, they pull that way back. If you watch like Cartoon Network or some of those newer shows, it's just people talking. You don't have these big voices. Maybe 1 or 2 characters on the show who's the supporting whatever does. But for the most part, the new shows don't do that. They'll either cast real kids or they'll, cast real adults doing their real voices. Kristen Schaal is great, right? She plays she does her own voice in everything she's in, but she's great. Like she totally connects to the characters. But that's what she does, and so she gets hired for those things. So it's become a lot more toned down than maybe it used to be. I'm sure not compared to on camera though.
And this is, beyond fascinating. And I love how, though, even though if you're watching this and you're in the business world, all of these elements are things that you can incorporate to the you that you present that's going to be of a benefit. I would love at this point for you all to gift a goal to the audience, something that they could do today, tomorrow, immediately to improve their performance or their attitude toward performing. So, KaZ, what goal would you like to
You would
gift?
pick me first.
Yes, I did.
Get into class. Get into a class. Get into an improv class. Get into an acting class just for fun. And as a performer, I mean an actor, class. But oftentimes, just as a business person, it helps you to relate to people. I had a mom contact me saying, I love your energy. I know you've been acting for a really long time. My daughter and I are going to be able to spend the summer together. We'd like to act. What can we? I said, go to class together. Interact with people. You'll have opportunities to do lots of different things. You'll learn things. You'll have fun. But for actors, get into class. And for business people, improv can be really, really beneficial. Because, my dad was a salesman his entire career, and I know that he tap danced a lot. And I know that he was flying by the seat of his pants a lot, and he could just pick stuff out of the air that was brilliant and got it sold. And he never took class, but he learned. But I say, yeah, go take a class.
I frequently say, if you can communicate, you could do anything. So practice writing, practice talking. And I did competitive speaking all through college. That was my social life. I'm sure that surprises no one. But that is always my favorite piece of advice to, what should I tell my kid, or what can I do to improve? Talk more, because the more you talk, the better you are at talking. And I did a stint in an improv class as an adult too. So they're so much fun. Okay, Ellie, what goal are you gifting?
I would say try to listen more. I think one of the things, and that kind of ties into what KaZ was saying about improv, but in general, we're so quick. Even my kids are so quick to push the jump ahead button, the 5-second button on YouTube. Nobody wants to hear, and granted, some of those commercials, I'm glad they're skipping. But it's, for me, it's helpful to listen to what the actor is doing in their job, in their commercial, or just listening when you go to a Starbucks or something and just hear the conversations around you, how people are talking to each other. Pay attention to the the dynamic between them, whether it's two friends or parent-child or whatever it is. Just listen to see how they talk to each other and how people around you, what they're saying and how they're saying it. I think we're so used to just kind of hearing things the way that we want to hear them and kind of dismissing whatever else. And that'll also help you in your business life too, because sometimes we get into those clashes because we're not listening to each other, what the other person needs. We're just kind of saying, well, I need this. Well, that's fine, but I need the time to do it, or I need to know what you need to help you accomplish that. Without listening, I feel like we don't really get what we need to get done. So
You could be a relationship coach too.
Oh,
I love that. I just had this flashback to a writing class in high school where the assignment was to listen to a conversation and take notes. And I was so into taking notes. It was at the cafeteria at lunch that I'm taking notes. And the next thing I heard was, "Oh my God, are you writing this down?" And oh my God, are you writing this down? Did come out of my pen. So that's how into the conversation I was. It's hilarious.
that's amazing.
But you're right. You can learn so much from listening. You have no idea. We are a skip ahead button world, whether we were born into that generation or not, for sure. Leslie, what goal would you like to gift?
So I think the one thing that prevents people overall from being authentic to who they really are, their natural soul, is that somewhere in their past, there was a naysayer. There was somebody that said, no, you can't, you won't, it can't be done. And so my gift is write a letter to your naysayer, your biggest naysayer, and tell them to go take a hike to a place that they can never return from and write down all the stuff that you really want to say to this naysayer. And once you write this letter, go to the backyard and burn it. And poof it into the universe and release this. And now say, I can be my true authentic self, because the naysayer means nothing to me anymore.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Ding, 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 ding.
Was that good?
Was
that a good button?
Oh,
Super
that was
good.
amazing.
Super good.
Because you're right. And the critics are everywhere.
Naysayers,
Don't let them in. Just
let
get
them
rid
in.
of it. Get rid of them. And once they're out,
Yeah.
and stay out.
Yeah, and if they're a family member and you got to like confront them, just go fair weather and fair times, going, hey, how's the weather? How you feeling? Direct it back to them and never let them redirect it into, so what about that career? Just go, oh, God, that's an amazing color on you. And just keep directing it back to them and don't let them get back to you under your skin, because they'll kill you each and every time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a joyous thought. But you need to be protective of yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, I might have mentioned this when I was on your show, Leslie, in your goal guide, which is not the recent one, but I call it Original Recipe Deb. It goes to the Deb method. But there's a road trip theme in it, and I say no backseat drivers. Mm-hmm. You need to know your life well enough that if people tell you things, you know who to listen to and who to tell to take a hike. So
yeah.
And it goes back to that authenticity and knowing who you are so you can be your best you at all times. Wow. I love this conversation. How much fun was this? Friends, where can people learn more about you? KaZ?
KazAkers.com, KazAkers.com.
Awesome. And Leslie, where can people learn more about you?
lafemme.org, LAFEMME.org. We're in our call for entries for the festival, so submit. And we also do consulting packages. I'll consult on anything. You want to get rid of a naysayer? I'll do that too.
Amazing. And Ellie?
My website is elliotschiff.com, ELLIOTSCHIFF.com. I'm also on all the socials, so you can find me on there, mostly at either Elliot Schiff or Elliot.Schiff or Ellie Schiff or something to that effect.
Wonderful. And if you go to thedebmethod.com/blog, you can read the recaps and get the links and get the goals. I am at the Deb Method everywhere. I am live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And you can also subscribe to GoalChat as a podcast, which is on the Marketing Podcast Network. And KaZ mentioned earlier, I do a monthly meetup called GoalChat Online. The next one, it's the third Wednesday of the month, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. So check the recap for the link to that as well. And if you need a little extra help on your goals, you can grab a copy of your goal guide and or 52 secrets for goal setting and goal getting, how to stay focused, grow your network, and get more done in less time, because we love nothing more than being genuine than a long keyword-rich title. Friends, what final thought would you like to leave everybody with today? KaZ, do you not want me to start with you, KaZ?
Please don't. Do I look like a deer in headlights? Because I feel like one.
Leslie, final thought.
Every no you get is just one more closer to a yes. So ignore the no's and seek out your yeses.
In ignoring no's, and I love this too, when you get a no, actually I'm saying it backwards. I always say that when you say no to something that is not a fit for you, it gives you an opportunity to say yes to something that is, and your no is a yes for somebody else. But you're right. Every no is closer to a yes, because not everything is a fit. But the more you get out there, the more likely you get to your yeses. Yes?
Yeah, it's just a matter of stats. Every no gets you closer to a yes.
You should see all my no's.
Ellie,
he knows all his no's.
The nose.
It's all about the nose.
I would just say, don't forget to have fun. We stress so much in this business. When's the next job? When is this going to happen? And I am very guilty of that myself. And sometimes we hold on to things so tight, we forget to have a good time while we're doing this. This is a creative and fun, job. It can be stressful, but, producing or directing or writing or acting, all of it is collaborative and should be fun. And we should want other people to have a good time with us, not just be like,
Because when you love what you do, it shows. And when you don't love what you do, it shows even more.
Yep.
Okay, KaZ, are you ready for the final thought? Okay.
I'm ready. Be your multifaceted, multi-layered, multi-dimensional, multi-potentialite, tapestry, kaleidoscope self. Just do it. Try it. Throw the gluten-free pasta up against the wall. Go for it.
Well, you're certainly not going to eat it.
At least not after it's been stuck to the wall.
No.
Okay, friends. So the lesson today is, even though we're like reclaiming the word authenticity, is you want to be authentic. You want to be authentic. You want to stand out. You want to be memorable. But most of all, you want to have fun and keep your journey exactly what it is yours, and go forth and enjoy, because you've got so much to offer the world. So what's stopping you? Thank you again, KaZ and Leslie and Ellie, for joining me today. Thank you for tuning in to GoalChat. Again, I am live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and you can subscribe again to GoalChat. And also, if you're a foodie, His Buzz with Deb. Like I said, such a fun, such an important topic, and we're all performers in our own right. So own your performance and be as much you as you can. Go on out there and go for it, because we know you can do it. Thanks, everyone.